Canticle of the Creatures of St. Francis of Assisi. Praise be you, my Lord, with all your creatures, especially Sir Brother Sun, who is the day, and through whom you give us light. And he is beautiful and radiant with great splendor, and bears a likeness of you, Most High One. Praise be you, my Lord, through Brother Wind, and through the air, cloudy and serene, and every kind of weather. Praise be you, my Lord, through Sister Water, who is very useful and humble and precious and chaste. Praise be you, Creator God, for the gift of sea and sand and endless surf that bring us joy of body and soul. Help us always to care for this great ocean, so that we and generations to come may enjoy its beauty and power and majesty. Be with us as we gather by the shore, and keep us safe when we enter this water world of wonder and delight. Amen.
In the beginning, there was nothing. That is the story, anyway. Life starting from the ground up. In the beginning was the earth, and the earth became desert. It was here first, before anything, foreshadowing the end of things. White spaces on our map filled with stories. A place always being born out of layers of sand, dust, and rock, where forgetting seems to be the task of both the people and the earth, where remembering seems to be the task of both the people and the earth. In fact, one portion of the coal mine that I worked in for many years, we punched out through some old works into a canyon wall, and there on the top, the ceiling of the mine tunnel, were fossils of fish. imagining the water. I love doing that when I'm driving all through the West. Because if you look at it around here, actually, we have a reef here. People see that on a map and start to think, how can there be a reef? But if you realize the places in the West that were once inundated with water, and what you're looking at now is what remains.
Apollo, this is Caprica, please come here. I need my backpacks, the zip.
There's a place over here in Pine Valley, they call it. There was a mountain there, Tutoyabi, Black Mountain. And my family was always taught, don't go to that mountain. There's something that lives there, and it'll get you. And they described it as something like a lion, but bigger. And like I say, about 10, 15 years ago, they found a cave over there. And it had a lot of them prehistoric animal bones, that saber-toothed kind. But then it makes me wonder how long the Shoshones actually been here, because if they talk about an animal like that, that means they had to be here when them prehistoric times, Ice Age times were here. So we go back more than what they say, 15,000 years. We go back even farther in our history here because of these animals that people talk about. They don't live or survive here anymore, but they seen them because they're passed down through our legends.
fling your hair out of it. There you go.
Not ready for that yet.
Oh, lost it. There you go. Grab the strings and. Okay. I'll go ahead and. Yeah.
That so many have put forth in preparing for this trek and for the opportunity that we've all had of reflecting back on our ancestors and those that have come before us as pioneers and have our own experiences that we can truly engage and feel of that wonderful pioneer spirit. And then as we return home, that we'll be able to truly be pioneers in many ways to others. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
You know, you guys lift your brims just a little bit so we get the cast shadow off. I know, right? Then I need you to put that one on. Right now. That's better. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Got it.
So this is a place called Prospect Hill, and the wagons would have come up the way I'm walking now on their journey west, and they were almost halfway to either Oregon or California, and they really felt like they were in a strange and new and different land than the landscape they had left behind them. And these are the swales, yeah, right here, these long longitudinal depressions in the landscape show us that this was where the wagons actually passed through. So we're right on the trail here. This is wagon ruts right here, and I think there's some coming down here. It's amazing, isn't it? So this is trail right along here. Can you imagine wagons coming right through here, making their way over this rocky part right here, maybe even with one tire here and one here, or maybe even one here and going on down this slope here and out to the horizon.
You hear scientists say, oh, we came across a land bridge. I don't believe that. I believe we was already here. And like I say, that Egypt, that's how we say coyote in Shoshone, Egypt. He's the one that transported us here in this little jug, or a jug like this, and let the people go. You know, every time he stopped, he opened it up, and the people would fall out, climb out, run out, escape, and that's how we ended up here. Because they couldn't catch us, couldn't bring back in, you know. So that's how the people came to stay here. And a lot of people say this is a desert, but it's full of life. It's not empty. And that's one thing my grandmothers always used to say. You're never alone when you're out there. There's something always there with you. And we'll always be here.
Land, gold, and religious freedom were the main reasons people were traveling these trails. And people might have been, that is, making those journey as much to leave something behind as to find a new start. It's a story that is thousands of miles long, and that those traces are still here. Swales and ruts still visible in the ground, and names on rocks. Here are some names. We have Sean. Somebody named Basfelt. Coover. Maybleen or Bleen, here's a good date, May 22nd, 1850, so he was very, very early in the year. Just wanting to say, yeah. The most interesting of those travelers was Father Peter de Smet, a Belgian Jesuit priest who came by here in 1841. And in his diary, he wrote this that day. Still, on the following day, lest it might be said that we passed this lofty monument of the desert with indifference, we cut our names on the south side of the rock. The surface is covered with the names of travelers, traders, trappers, and emigrants, engraven upon it in almost every practicable part. On account of all these names and of the dates that accompany them, as well as of the hieroglyphics of Indian warriors, I have surnamed this rock the Great Register of the Desert.
Marching as to war, Coyote Ijapa Trickster. That's what his name was. Bison, the common bison found on the prairies we called gwitch. Lynx, Mozondukovich. Otter, Banzuk, Water's old man. Horse, Dihi, a four-legged hoofed. Elk, Barihi. Ba refers to water and Dihi refers to four-legged hoofed. Wolf, Bia Ijapa. So the word for sheep, and he was a modern animal to us. We never seen him. We called him Sipuku. Si or sip refers to urine, and buku means pet. So we called him the urine pet.
Want water, go get water. There, you see it out of your mug. We've got still a few mugs over there.
Can you go fill mine up?
You girls are. Give me the hat over your face.
Can you go fill mine up?
Humans are explorers. That's been what we've done throughout history, right? We explore to the furthest reaches, and that's what we do, and that we just have this fundamental need and desire to explore, and Mars is like the next frontier. So many of us just have that feeling within ourselves that we just need to go there and explore. Mars would be a great second home. So it's the planet in our solar system that would be the easiest from a technical standpoint, and because it's the most similar to Earth presently on the surface, for humans to set up a permanent settlement or colonization there. So I think that would be really cool. I think that that's sort of our destiny, to go out into the solar system and eventually into the universe and settle elsewhere and just expand outwards, because well, you just never know when there's going to be a disaster on the Earth, like an asteroid striking the Earth that could wipe out much of civilization, all of civilization. So it just seems like a good idea to have a backup plan.
About 1971, yes, back in Japan, at the music gathering with those people who loved the country music, bluegrass music, and one guy brought me a copy of LP, Jimmy Rogers, and loaned it to me, so I took it home, not expecting much. But anyway, first song I played on that LP just blew my mind away. Yes. Let me, right here. This one. The best of the legend Jimmy Rogers, great photo from 1928 or something, 29. And his Japanese. Right, yeah. So I was, drowned into, oh, it's like like a magnet, right? So drowned into his sound, on that day. So that's it. I wanted to come to America to see, to check out, okay, where this sound comes from. So I wanted to see the land. So yes, and then something happened and I got the job. In just only 3 months into new job, the boss called me up. Hey Toshio, we are thinking about sending you to America. So you're young, you're single, and you seem to know English a little bit, and maybe you are best candidate if you are interested in. So I'd like to send you to America to work for me, 3 to 5 years. How about that? Then, when I heard that, of course, I say yes, without thinking, no condition. Okay, I go. Okay, yeah, you don't have to pay me. Just send me there. So yes, I came. As I listened to his singing, his sound goes up and down, almost like, say, he's walking on the country road, a bumpy country road. It's gravel, rock all over, very bumpy, up and down. And I could hear his voice goes up and down along with that landscape. So then, as I listened to his singing of any songs, I can get the picture of what he's singing about.
For them, it was, I think, startlingly barren. You can see why they might have thought that. And it still is barren, but and forbidding for that reason. And some found it very beautiful. Some found it scary, beyond beautiful, to frightening. You know, Father de Smet, he's always pretty much over the top with his descriptions. You know, he uses the word horror and terror a lot when he's talking about the landscape. And at the same time, mostly just a feeling of difference and alien land. The remarkable thing about this landscape, I think, is how the arid climate, in a way, protects these trails from changing more than they might otherwise if they were getting rain and snowed on more every year than they do. And then that leaves room for us 150 years later to imagine the time then. What was it really like? What were those people thinking about? Where were they? How did they move on the land? And out here, it's easy to do that because of this kind of transparency. Yeah, I like that about the West. I still love that about the place. Is that it's that time transparency.
As human beings, we're covered in bacteria. Everything that we touch is covered in microbes. And if we go to Mars, those microbes are going to go with us. So we just need to take measures to minimize the amount of contamination that happens with the surface. One, so that if we do discover life on Mars, we'll know that it truly was life on Mars and not just contamination that we brought with us. And two, just kind of out of fundamental respect for other living beings. We'd have to be very careful about how we treat the planet. You don't want to invade and take over and hurt the life that's already there.
The Book of Mormon, 1 Nephi, chapter 18. And it came to pass that after we had sailed for the space of many days, we did arrive at the promised land, and did pitch our tents.
I hate to tell you, but that's the way it was, is my guess.
I'm sure it was.
I hope it was.
At least at 17 miracles.
Yeah.
That's what they did.
Yeah.
Helped each other up that snowy hill.
And had angels pushing too, huh?
Did everybody keep hydrated?
I think we did pretty well.
I drank a lot of water, some of it rather warm by the afternoon.
Yeah.
I think we need to do
And it came to pass that we did find upon the land of promise, as we journeyed in the wilderness, that there were beasts of every kind, both the cow and the ox, and the ass and the horse, and all manner of wild animals, which were for the use of man. And we did call it the promised land. And it came to pass that we did begin to till the earth, and we began to plant seeds. Yea, we did put all our seeds into the earth which we had brought forth from the land of Jerusalem. And it came to pass that we did grow exceedingly, wherefore we were blessed in abundance.
The honeybee contributes 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey through its lifetime of 4 weeks or just a little bit more than that. 1/12 of a teaspoon. And yet that 1/12 of a teaspoon, that tiny drop, is counted as very significant contribution to the colony.
You know, they made the desert blossom, you know, through their efforts. And if you can imagine, a lot of the early pioneers, when they arrived here, they said, really? This is where we're going to settle? Can you imagine? It was a land that no one else wanted.
Barbed wire seems to have an appeal to me that, like nothing else. Trading and swapping and selling and buying and adding to my collection. I would say that it had a great deal to do with the settling of the West and the taming of the West. Without barbed wire fencing, which was needed because there were no trees out here. Farms and ranches would never have been able to contain their animals, or in the early days, keep out the wild animals. So, yes, it was certainly necessary. It marked, number one, a person's boundary, and that was how it became so widespread, because everyone wanted to mark their boundary.
Yeah. Wait till spring comes. How much did nothing grow here in the spring?
It doesn't look like it, huh?
Well, it's drying up because there's ain't no water. It's all drying up. So they're taking all the water over there.
This is my father, Johnny Kennedy, and I'm Joe Kennedy, and we're here at his home site. This is where his home used to be. It was built back in the early 30s. He left his home and went to World War II and was in the war for the U.S. government. And when he came back, his home was gone because the National Park Service came and washed it down. And there was other homes on the other side of this road right behind you. And those were also washed down. So I think there's only, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 adobes left. Because they wanted it to be a park and they wanted everybody just out of the park. But yeah, they just wanted to get the Indians out of here, or the indigenous people, the Shoshones, out of this area. So they were just trying to push them out wherever they want, but some of them said, no, well, this is where our home is and we're not leaving. So they just kept staying, and they continued to stay.
That's right. Focused on the people. I don't know, I picture. It should be okay now. Oh, there we go. No, it has to go onto the memory card.
I do helping them too. Buying stuff all over.
And he's saying we're helping them grow by buying groceries or stuff from over there. Which is probably partly true, I guess.
It takes our money, it takes the ground too, both.
Yeah.
They never give us nothing.
No.
from the bird's eye view, you see what appears to be a very large metropolitan area because you see these streets laid in. And as you start getting down closer and closer to it, of course, you notice that these streets are undeveloped, and a lot of them are just dirt.
This road is a desert mix road. Desert mix is a process whereby the native soil is scarified and brought back into a pile. Asphalt and oil products are added to it. It's mixed back and forth and then spread out with a road grader on the native soil. Over a long time, it starts to wear down and it easily breaks up because there's basically very little rock in it. If I can get this one to break now for me. There's very little rock in it, and it looks an awful lot like oil and dirt, which is exactly what it is. This road is 50 or 60 years old, has never been maintained, and the oil parts are broken up and it returns back into the sand that you see in the desert. Most of the roads in California City were desert mix roads in the beginning.
California City was really a developer's dream from the 60s. It was quite unique at the time. You know, it's very rare that you ever see a city grow all at once as far as infrastructure. Normally you start at the crossroads and work your way out as you grow. And so this was marketed to the public at the time. And of course, California was the land of milk and honey, and this was everybody's dream to own a piece of it. And we find that there's people from all over the world that actually own it right now. Times changed, dreams changed, and people did not make the move into the desert area. So we haven't seen the development mature like was originally planned.
Even very trained, selected astronaut could have psychological problem in outer space because of the many stressors. I have been thinking about psychological support for astronauts, and I created Zen garden, which could be called dried landscape. In Japanese, it's kare-sansui. If we have long-term mission, we need stimulation. You know, humans also enjoy the beauty. It's important on the other planet as well. The dried landscape usually make lakes to make the symbol of the water. So even if we don't have any water on Mars during first several missions, we can imagine water through the Zen garden.
The wall's falling apart over here. Well, so check this out. Like here is, it's almost like there's a lining on this. That's not drywall, is it?
It could be a piece of drywall, it looks like, yeah.
Is that drywall?
Just thrown in there.
It is. So sometimes we find pieces of whitish material that looks like rock, but it was in all likelihood parts of the drywall material that came off the interior of the buildings in the later stages of the camp. So they began to import things like linoleum or drywall to help it seem more like home and be more comfortable.
Well, the history of the Manzanar camp starts, with the attack on Pearl Harbor. On the West Coast, there was a large percentage of Japanese Americans living in concentrated areas, so they were kind of real obvious where they lived. People were afraid of them. They kind of demanded that the military do something about it, and so the military gathered these people up into assembly centers and then brought them to remote, desolate areas like Manzanar where they could sit out the war and be safe or not be a threat to the United States. But you know, a lot of these people never saw mountains, never saw snow, probably never experienced this kind of heat or dust. So it was a completely new experience to everybody. And a lot of them didn't know where they were going, what to bring, what to pack, so they didn't even have proper clothes. The wind blows here constantly, so they had huge dust storms all the time. You know, dust would get into the buildings. It was pretty miserable at first, and that's why they started planting grass and gardens for everybody to enjoy. In Japanese garden tradition, there's a borrowed landscape, whereas you have something nice in your nice garden in the foreground, and you try to incorporate the hills in the background. And the top of the mountains kind of matches the top of his lantern here. So we try to think he was trying to mimic the mountains in his lantern here. And you know, the water faucet is over there, and he would have had a hose coming over to this little channel, and the water would have ran through this channel and then flowed over the edge in 2 different spots into his pond. Before we did the excavation, nothing was visible on the surface. The lanterns, the rocks was all bulldozed and pushed into the pond, and then there was a layer of sand over it.
Not a whole lot left. Here's a piece with some aluminum honeycomb construction. This is diagnostic of the type of materials used on the F-111A. It's all along here, just thousands of little pieces, but the main impact site is up ahead. This may look like a rock, but it's actually charred metal, melted aluminum, that probably flowed down here in a molten river during the fire. Some sites do disappear under the desert sand, and others under the encroachment of humans building new housing developments or agricultural areas. A number of crash sites have been lost because they were covered over by freeway construction or even solar power plants.
So this is what we call a manhole. This is an access point to the sewer system. And so on the other side here inside there's a ladder. And originally when this was first built, it would have been just a big concrete pipe sticking up. And Kato here, he used his, his faux wood technique to put a layer on here to make it look like a tree stump. And this is right outside the hospital buildings, and so this was his attempt to make this look a little nicer, was to simulate this to look like a tree stump. And it's beautiful for what it is, yeah. And typically at all World War II era internment camps, the thing that's preserved is the sewer system, because it's all made out of concrete and a lot of it is buried. So it's well preserved, and that's typically, it's not the most exciting thing you can find archaeologically, but it's what you do find is a lot of concrete. Whoa!
Who knows what an archaeologist is going to make of this in the future. Certainly when they come across these unusual rock formations, they're going to realize that they are man-made. It will cause them a great deal if they are into aliens and population from outer space. Then undoubtedly these were landing pads and interstellar ground signals. And look at what you have right there, just so that you can catch this. We're actually in the center of Second Community. This is called Galileo Hill. Out to the right, you can see our city boundaries go out quite a ways. All the buildings that you can see are part of the core of the population of our city, the basic part of our city. It's hard to envision this as just slightly smaller than San Diego and Los Angeles, but that's what it is. We're larger than San Francisco and larger than many other areas around. A lot of open space. A lot of canvas to paint on.
Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Sean Paul of Georgia. The number one thing on my book, my list, is we got a new member. Jennifer, would you like to stand for a second? All right.
That said, the city, those that are here now, are still building for the future, and we never take our eye off the concept that at some point in time those people may choose to come. And we have to be ready if and when that time comes for that, to handle the new arrivals.
California, and a few clouds actually, but it's not enough to give us any rain. So I don't have any rain in the 7-day forecast as we head on into the end of the next week.
And all the names that they named, all these places, it didn't come from us. It came from them. I don't know why they named it those names. I think that's terrible. Feudal Range, Devil's Golf Course, Devil's Cornfield, and everything is about devils.
Devil's Gateway.
Yeah, Devil's Gateway.
Coffin Canyon.
Mm-hmm.
Devil's Golf Course.
That's not right. Bad water.
Mm-hmm. We try our very best not even to talk about death.
Uh-huh.
We were always scolded when we started talking about death. So you don't talk about that.
Up there, that used to be a big ceremonial ground. There used to be a big dance ring up there. And then also there was the big kitchen up there. But what happened was the bulldozers came in there and they bulldozed it out, and his father tried to stop him and said, don't be doing that. But they just did it anyways, you know, because they didn't care about those things. So, well, all that's left is just like maybe a small area from maybe that microphone to us. And it's just what's left of the milling, you know, and they call it kitchen rock. So there's only one rock left out of everything that was there. So everything else just got bulldozed under, and so it's like erased the imprint of the people that were here. So they write their own story of how the history was.
I think we do the archaeology so people can see these gardens and see how people respond to being confined, you know, what the human spirit is capable of, even in, you know, harsh environments and harsh conditions. When I first started doing work out here, people said there's nothing left. You know, the government removed it all when the camp closed. But, you know, there's different levels of removal. And, you know, some people would rather leave it buried and forgotten. But there's, you know, a very vocal community that really wants this part of history remembered, so we don't repeat it. There was people talking about interning all Muslim Americans in camps because we don't know which ones to trust and which not. So, you know, if people get afraid enough, fear is a great motivator. I mean, you can make people lock up other people.
Okay, yes. Yes, here is the song from Jimmy Rogers. And yes, this song is called Waiting for a Train, which I learned about 40 years ago, along with Pitch Picking Time down in Georgia. So yeah, I've been singing two songs for a long time, and I still like it. And if I have to choose one song, probably this is a song, yes, I have to choose. But anyway, now, okay, let's see, it goes like this. Waiting for a train 1,000 miles away from home, sleeping in the rain. I walked up to a brakeman, began him line of talk. He says, if you got money, I'll see that you don't walk. I haven't got a nickel, not a penny can I show. Get off, you railroad bum. He slams the boxcar door. He put me off in Texas, a state I dearly love. Wide open spaces around me, the moon and stars above. Nobody seems to want me or lend me a helping hand. I'm on my way from Frisco, I'm going back to Dixieland. Though my pocketbook is empty and my heart is full of pain, I'm 1,000 miles away from home, just waiting for the train. So that was Waiting for a Train. You like that song?
You gonna help me? Huh? Are you gonna help me? Well, that's great. Oh. You made it. Yes, we did. Okay. Now wait a minute. I gotta find my other boot. Are you on my boot? I'm sorry, honey.
Well, this is a tumbleweed,
And as soon as it's ripe and all the seeds are ready to go, it breaks off at the base and then it tumbles and spreads its seeds out across the land. And it's very effective at doing that. It can travel for miles through the air. We get very strong windstorms in the desert, and you can find tumbleweeds in parts of this desert where nobody's ever set foot. A lot of people think it's a symbol of the West because it travels through those dusty towns. You see it in a lot of Western movies. But it actually came from Russia in about the 1870s to America. It's believed it came in a shipment of seeds that were contaminated with some Russian seeds. And it spread very quickly, so people knew right away there was a problem.
We are looking for the site where they filmed The Conqueror, which was the movie they made in 1956 with John Wayne and Susan Hayward and Dick Powell. A very cheesy movie about Genghis Khan and a beautiful princess he held captive. And they shot it here in this canyon, so we want to find the exact site where you can find the sand dunes. They shot it on the sand dunes, a place we just love to come and find solitude and quiet. And it seems very innocent and clean and like you're away from anything that could hurt you. But you scratch the surface deep enough and it's also a place of death. Let's see, I can turn here. These are the sand dunes. They're really, look at the, I mean, in the afternoon light, it's like they're almost alive. It's absolutely beautiful. So let's go see them. Okay, so this is a 1980 People magazine, and you'll see that on the cover it says, "New controversy over John Wayne's death. Did atom bomb tests give him and other stars cancer?" The really interesting thing about this is that nobody really cared about what fallout did to the people who live in this area or across the West until this magazine came out, until it was John Wayne. This is what made people start to notice. It took a movie star getting sick for people to notice. Memories of the Conqueror have begun to acquire nightmarish clarity. The movie was shot from June through August 1954 among the scenic red bluffs and white dunes near St. George, Utah, an area chosen by Powell for its similarity to the Central Asian steppes. At the time, it didn't seem significant that St. George was only 137 miles from the atomic testing range at Yucca Flat, Nevada. The federal government, after all, was constantly reassuring local residents back then that the bomb test posed no health hazard. Of the Conqueror's 220 cast and crew members from Hollywood, an astonishing 91 have contracted cancer. 46 of them, including Wayne, Hayward, and Powell, have died of the disease. I think there's a difference because we have...
Sarah, Lisha, Bethany, okay, a new student. You're Colton, huh? Yeah. Did you ever have Rappo before? No. No? Are you from out of state? What tribes are you? Growan. Growan. Well, the same language, man. When you say I'm here, then you say Hantona. Hantona? Hantona, that means I am here.
They started in 1951, and they exploded 100 atmospheric tests. That lasted until 1962. And then from 1962 to 1992, that's 30 years, they moved the test underground, and there were about 828 of those. So it's about 928 bombs, all of them bigger than the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki that were exploded in our backyard. They do kind of look at this whole area as just one big toxic dump. This is a good place to dump what nobody else wants. It was far from what they considered civilization. They thought that most of the people living in the West didn't really matter. We were Mormons, we were cowboys, we were Indians, so they could do it there. And they only did it when the wind was blowing toward the east to keep it away from California. So what happened though, anytime it collided with a rainstorm or a snowstorm, it fell out. God, and I worry that one day, like the whole generation who knows this story will be gone, and then it will just disappear. So.
And it's not just to save the language, it's to save our Indian kids. They're gonna lose who they are. They won't know who they are. 'Cause I didn't know who I was. My parents didn't even teach me I was Native. They just assumed I knew. But they didn't tell me, you're a Native and we're in this new world, the new non-Indian world, and you're gonna have to go to school. And you know, they didn't say nothing about our treaties or anything about our culture. And so one day I went to school at Fort Washakie. I was about 7. And this little non-Indian girl, she called me a dirty Indian. And I was like, what? I'm one of the bad guys, because I used to watch John Wayne and Cowboys and Indians, and I would cheer for the Cowboys. And, you know, I was like, yay, they're winning, you know, safe in the fort, slaughtered the Indians with one bullet, you know. And when she said that to me, I realized that I'm an Indian. Because she called me a dirty Indian, so I was one of the bad guys. And from that point on, I became like a rebel. I was like, I'm going to find out who I am and, you know, figure it out.
That must be the doctor. This bison, when you walked into the new museum, you're going to walk right to his face. It can be right there. Then the horse will be behind him, chasing him. Looks okay to me, but I'm really satisfied that they do look as good as they do. I was a little worried that some of them may show some damage from being stored so long, but they look really good. If we can just get them moved from here up to the museum without any more damage. Those of you who are Catholic probably recognize this one. This is Father D. Smith. We'll make sure that he has a
adequate positioning so that everybody can see him. At the diorama that he was in before had 2 Native Americans that he was trying to convert. I don't know how successful all that was. Some other nice looking guys here. This is kind of a dandy. Got a pretty fancy outfit on. Typical of the 1800 era. Some of these, if we change the clothing and use a little cosmetics, we can make them look like anybody we want to. So I think that'll be a challenge, and it'll be fun.
It's never just about the technology. It's definitely important to remember that none of this would have been possible without people. Those who are willing to strap themselves into the cockpit and risk their lives testing it. I like to say that heroes are remembered, but legends never die. A lot of those planes were used to test new technologies or to reach new speed and altitude milestones. The X-1 was the first plane to fly faster than the speed of sound, Mach 1. To look for a dirt road to turn off, and we'll head out into the desert. This picture from the accident investigation report shows the airplane as it looked just after it had crashed. In the background, there's a wide valley, but more important, there's a little hill on the horizon which I can see right there. That's going to help nail it down. So I know I'm really close, and this will help pinpoint it completely. Now this piece of stainless steel is probably a bracket, but it has some of the most important clues. There's a manufacturer's inspection stamp and even a part number. I checked for the North American stamp, NAA 9606, so I know for sure this is part of an X-10.
I have a device here that measures radiation, and we're getting a reading off of both of these mine openings, which is what you'd expect since they're uranium mines. If I walked along the wash, no doubt I would find other hot spots, but this is definitely hot, which is why they have it closed off to keep people from going in there. The Cold War was practiced out here in the American West. This is where we learned how to fly our bombers and hit targets, shoot rockets and hit targets, atomic weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons, you name it. This is where we practiced the art of warfare. And the Cold War was really quite damaging to the American desert. And not just on this desert. I'm sure that if you were to travel to the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, and go to places in Kazakhstan and so forth, you would find that the same military facilities, testing grounds, bombing grounds, and so forth, you know, we shared more in common with the Soviet Union than we thought.
The tumbleweed is like an invader, and it takes over the native habitat and upsets the balance. It outcompetes other plants, and if there are rare plants here, they have only very limited resources like water and nutrients, so the tumbleweed can take a lot from them. Well, we do our best to try to control them. At this point, it's so widespread, all we can really do is try to keep it off of the roads and keep it from spreading further into other areas where it's not found. I understand that at the Nevada test site, after they tested the nuclear bombs, the first plant to return to that area was the tumbleweed. Most likely because it blew into that area. Everything must have been sterilized, but it's such a good traveler on the wind that it would have shown up before anything else.
They are now trying to figure out what to do with all of the waste from weapons production and also from nuclear power plants. And so they want to send the debris from that nuclear age back to the desert, full circle. And we dug the raw material out, and now we're being asked to bury it again. How do you put signs around that could be read by someone as long as that radioactive waste is going to be dangerous? The waste would be dangerous for more years than most languages live. So they had to come up with different pictograph symbols to try to designate that as a dangerous area for fear that sometime unwary people would wander in and not understand what had been buried there. We're not a desert people, and we think that we can bury anything out in the desert and it will stay put. But I think that we are going to learn to our sorrow that that's not true.
entering Antelope Canyon. As we cruise through the sinuous curves and twists ahead, you're going to get up close and personal with the unique Navajo sandstone of Lake Powell's cliff walls. We're going to slow down and take our time. The further into Antelope Canyon we travel, the more twisted and narrow it becomes. The rusty pigment you'll find all around you is actually that, rust.
Next up, car 588D Grand Touring. The Kiwis can fly all the way from Australia. Running on a 213 record.
These dramatic bends and loops were formed by the wind and the rain. Even in the desert, you must always be aware of the power of water. Sandstone itself is formed something like the way you'd make a layer cake.
A layer on top of a layer, it's windblown. Geologists can actually tell the direction of the winds during the time that those layers were laid down just by the shape of the layers.
Due to plate tectonics, all the Earth's continents have slowly shifted direction over time. Cody Bailey.
North America itself as a continent 200 and some odd million years ago was not where it is right now.
Radio check, please. 98988 diesel streamliner in mile 2. 104, 2 1/4, 141. So only the second fastest meet on this car, so he's, still checking brakes out. And it looks like he's picking it up.
Last radio check, loud.
Loud smoke.
And then there was wind that carries sagebrush and sand, plastic, needles and cans, hats, and metal car parts. And wind blows west, always. And water flows west, always. And at the end of it all lies the ocean, our end times. In that age coming, exile and return, we will ride again, uncovering our traces, starting from the ground up.
Just